Hello everyone and welcome back to The ReQuest. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my wonderful co-host, Austin, the Day Ghost!
What's up, everybody?
How you doing, man?
From the ether.
Are you ready to go to hell? Or at least see a glimpse of hell, but spend...
I don't live that far away from New Jersey.
but spend most of our time at a nightclub run by the guy who doesn't want to run hell.
Yep, I am pretty excited.
That's what we're doing this evening. This is a real off the beaten path one. Tonight on the ReQuest, we're going to do a commentary instead of a standard review. Mostly because Austin and I don't seem to be able to get away with the show without talking for nearly an hour or an hour anyway. So we figured we might as well just do this as a commentary and talk over the episode. This was requested by Snuffles Writes on Patreon. Thanks a lot to her. And she asked us to do this during that real brief window where I was trying to convert the requested reviews into commentaries. And so this actually was originally going to be a commentary in the first place, which is also part of the reason I was thinking, I thought about doing it that way. And once we decided to shift it back to reviews and I brought Austin on board, I messaged her back and I was like, do you still want me to do that or something different? And she was like, nah, still do that episode. It's really good. I want to know what you think about it. So that's what we're doing tonight. And this is a show that Austin had never seen at all before, I don't think.
No, I only knew that it was a show about the devil and he helps the police solve crimes, which I thought, was pretty interesting because of that movie Spaceballs, but it ended up being a lot more funny like that new movie, The Batman. So I thought it was really interesting how that worked out.
Which sounds like the most obvious kind of Fox supernatural procedural that you could come up with, right? Like, it's always somebody's got ESP, or somebody speaks to dead people, or why not make it the devil who hangs out with the police and solves crimes?
Yeah, well, and even watching it, I was like, oh, I could probably get down to this. This reminds me of watching House when I was a kid, but like as a cop show.
Sure.
Where you just have like that one character that's like, oh, quirky, and like they just do their thing. They don't follow the rules, man.
Yeah, and there's something real kind of like familiar about it. That if you grew up with episodic television, that's kind of refreshing in a way to get back to something like Quantum Leap or something, because obviously there still are a lot of these episodic procedural type things on still, but in genre fiction we've gone a lot more to straight up serialized, and it's nice to still have these vestiges of 70s, 80s, 90s, like I said, Quantum Leap, X-Files, et cetera, $6 Million Man, that kind of thing. And iZombie was like that, this is like that, and I'm sure this has, overarching plot lines just like iZombie did, but I know that this show stays pretty procedural like this, and it's not the kind of thing that I go in for as much anymore, but whenever for some reason I'm forced to sit and watch a thing like this, I get this kind of like warm kind of nostalgic feeling of, oh yeah, that's right, this is what television used to be like.
Well, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this on camera, but I prefer episodic TV, where you can just like jump into an episode and just be like, oh, this is the show.
Watch it in any order. And
I love Daredevil, don't get me wrong. I've never gone back to it because I have to watch the entire thing. Like, I can't just be like, I'm gonna watch an episode of Daredevil tonight and just pick an episode and it's like, oh, he's gonna fight the Gladiator this episode.
So you're very much the kind of personality that would just sit down and channel surf.
Yeah, I used to as a kid.
I mean, I don't know if you do now, but that just seems like a thing that...
I don't even have cable anymore.
Maybe more appeal to you than it does a lot of people these days and of your generation. But I mean, your favorite show is The Simpsons.
Yeah, and I can just at any moment be like, I feel like this season tonight, and just like pop in a random episode.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I mean, I don't watch a lot of modern TV anymore just because it's so much of a commitment. And to keep track of everything. I've used this example before, but I haven't gotten back to Better Call Saul yet because I watched the first couple seasons of that, and then there was a long window before Netflix got the new season, and by the time it did, I had watched too much stuff and slept since then. And so when I tried to watch the new season, I watched the first episode of that third or fourth, wherever I was, and could not remember enough of what had happened. I felt like I was jumping into a show in the deep end, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to go back, and I just haven't had time to do it. So anyway, things like this are kind of refreshing to me, going back to it. So we're gonna go ahead and watch this one. This is season 3, episode 7, and it's an episode called Off the Record, which watches like kind of a restating the thesis kind of episode, like almost, if this was in comics, almost like a jumping on point. And another reason I thought it would be cool to do a commentary is because I know a lot of our viewers probably haven't seen the show or haven't seen much of it, and this is a really easy episode to just jump in and watch if you know nothing about the show at all. Even if somehow you watched this and weren't aware of the premise, I mean, it gives you everything, and so it's a really nice, more or less, it's a really nice kind of standalone singular piece that you can enjoy in a vacuum, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no issues following this episode, having never seen it.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to watch it in a vacuum. It's on Netflix, and in fact, this show was made by Netflix for the last 3 seasons. It just ended last year, and it was it was on for 6 seasons. It got 3 on Fox. Shockingly, didn't get canceled despite low ratings. I don't know how it stayed on, and then it went to Netflix, and apparently did better there, relatively to however they count their viewership. Well, after they kept it on, because
just ends you.
Yeah, as a matter of course. Although I've heard that that's gotten better with the current management, and so maybe that's partly why. It might just be that whoever was, because I don't know who's in charge of Fox TV anymore, but maybe whoever was running it just liked that show and wanted to do everything they could to keep it on, because that happens sometimes. Like if the people in charge like really believe in a show and are fans of it, they'll do everything they can to keep it on. So I imagine that was a situation where they were really sad to let it go.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I didn't even realize it had just ended. That's interesting.
I had to look that up. I wasn't sure either.
Watch more of this, I think.
Yeah, I have not watched this since part way through the first season. Brandon and I were reviewing it when we were trying to review every superhero comic book show that was on, and then we all lost our minds and quit doing that. But I haven't watched it since then, so I've never seen even the end of the first season. And I was enjoying it okay, but I've heard that it really finds its footing later, and that's why Snuffles wanted us to watch an episode from later on. So anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. Make sure that you're at timestamp 0 and get ready to press play whenever I say now. Here we go. Everybody, please press play. It's season 3, episode 7, right now. So Austin, right away, given that it had been a while since I had watched this show, I was like, I don't know if this guy is like a regular character I'm supposed to know, or if he's like the guest star of this episode.
Oh, that's funny, because when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is probably just going to be, the character for the episode. Like, this is the guy that gets sick at the beginning of every House episode.
Well, and then I was kind of surprised that he does watch like a one-off character, but he is majorly connected to a regular recurring character in the show. So he's sort of both. Like, I actually kind of wonder if he ever appears anytime before this, given that he is Lucifer's therapist ex-husband, because he's got to be mentioned in places. Like, is this the first time we see this guy? Like 3 seasons in?
This is going to be embarrassing, but I didn't even realize she was a main character in this show. I probably should have.
I was going to say, I feel like even if you've never seen this show before, that's kind of clear, because it's like, they play it as sort of an ongoing subplot that he's a therapist, and you can even track the history of it, because early on they sleep together, and then later on you find that they're not together in any way anymore, and it's a purely professional relationship now.
No,
Uh,
that is true.
I was a little confused for a second at the beginning, and then figured I knew where it was going, and I was glad that it went that way, because otherwise I would have been really lost. When Lucifer says he's been working with the police for a couple weeks, and I'm like, okay, are we back in first season, or did I miss something? Like what exactly is happening? And about, I don't know, a third to a half of this episode takes place real early. Like it would be a couple few episodes into the show, and then we'd have a time jump a year later, and then we bring him back. This whole thing is real between the raindrops, and it's a character that our kind of eyes in like guest main character for this episode, because he's the guy that gets the arc. It's his episode, and who gets this kind of tragic but comedic goes to hell at the end kind of arc. He very easily could have been a regular recurring character with his own major subplot, like through the whole show. And a lot of superhero comic things have this character.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The journalist trying to figure out the big secret.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think this episode reminded me a lot of something Batman the Animated Series would have done if it were allowed to go to like some more adult places. Like I was thinking of stuff like when they bring in just like one-off characters, like the man who killed Batman.
Yeah, good call.
Or, Joker's favor.
Yeah, because it would do episodes like that where you put Batman really in the background, and obviously that's a character that's really easy to do that with, and this is Lucifer's show. It's nice to have an actor that's got maybe a little enough ego that he's okay doing episodes like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I also should mention this is my second time seeing Lucifer, because the first time was in Crisis.
That's true, which is hilarious. And I had forgotten that this show was on Netflix when that happened. Like, I remember trying to remember where that was.
Now, I was thinking about that watching it, like, man, I can't believe that was the first time I'd ever seen this character. He's so cool here. But, like,
yeah,
he just shows up to be like, oh, Constantine, you goof.
So you guys will have to forgive me. I hate to do this in the middle of a commentary, but I want to stop everything and start over. So Austin, I'm going to ask you to take over for a couple of minutes. I've got to run and take care of something. I'll be right back.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Don't mess it up, sir.
I'll do my best. Sid the Squid. Oh yeah, Blue Dragon 5. I always forget that that's the name of the character from The Man Who Killed Batman. I've been going through the animated series recently. I've had a bit of a break over the last week or so, but I haven't gotten to that one yet. I'm trying to remember what the last episode I watched. What was it? I know one of the last ones was Laughing Fish. That was one of the big ones. And I can't remember if that's before or after the Hugo Strange episode. But both of those episodes are really great. I guess I should probably pause this episode then, since because I'm just still watching it, and I should probably just pause it and go from there. But at least we're only a few minutes into it. It's not no big deal. But it was pretty interesting watching this show last night. I was like, just kind of instantly, I was pretty into it. It was Mark Hamill's favorite Joker performance with Batman. Oh, his eulogy in that episode is fantastic. Absolutely. Um, I mean, the "Who's for Chinese" bit is one of the classic bits in that episode, or just like his Joker in general. I also think Joker's favor has one of my favorite Joker lines from Mark Hamill, where he's like explaining the plan, and then he goes, "Oh, he told me not to pause. Oh, whoops. I'll get the timestamp when he comes back. It's no big deal." But it's when he's explaining the whole plot, and he goes like, you're gonna have to open the door for him, for Harley. And he's like, oh, like that's it? Like you just need me to open the door for her to roll in this cake? And Joker's like, yeah. Have you seen the size of this cake, man? She can't just push it in herself. It's so good. Snuffles, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is a very good uh, jumping on point for this show. 'Cause I knew the basic premise and had seen Lucifer and the stupid Crisis crossover, but I had no issues following this episode. It was very easy to just follow along. Yeah, it took him 2 years to follow a door or to open a door. That's the way the Joker works. You know, you never know with that guy. If everybody's still watching, I'm probably like a few minutes behind. So like it does feel weird to comment, but because I was paused through like most of this. But no, I really like the guy that plays Lucifer in the show. He he's got that kind of right kind of charisma, and because that's a type of character that I guess could probably like easily come off as annoying or maybe even generic because there's a lot of kind of shows like this. But I think he really makes it work. Cap, thank God you're back. It was going disastrously.
Oh my goodness! Were you crashing in Bergen? Well, at least we're still in the opening credits, right? Or rather, the credits over in early scene. We don't get opening credits anymore, at least on things that started on regular television. I kind of wondered if maybe Netflix like gives it a longer intro.
I'm not sure. I'm probably like a minute behind you now though, because I was like, oh, I should probably pause this, and then paused it, and then Blue Dragon 5 was like, no, Cap said not to pause it.
Oh no, I said keep it going.
Yeah, clearly I missed that, but
no, it's fine. We've got 45 minutes to talk about a thing we don't know all that well. We've got time.
yeah. No,
I'm at 9:31.
So my Netflix, it doesn't tell me how far into it is, just how much I have left.
Oh, hi Snuffles. She's there in the comments. She
Yes,
said, I thought
yeah,
this would be a
I
decent
responded to
standalone.
her.
It has a good sense of what the show is. And, I mean, I agree with that. This is one of those things where it kind of watches in a way almost like a second pilot. And like I said, a good jumping on point for somebody coming in that doesn't know anything about the show. And I don't know if the show did a lot of cliffhanger endings with the ends of seasons and stuff, but it would even be a really good season opener. It's smart that it's as early in the season as it is, probably. Because I don't know what it watches like in the sequence, because I wasn't watching, you know, at this point, but I'm curious when I finally go back through, because like with you, watching this episode and getting into the show again, I was like, yeah, I think I do want to finally do a watch of this whole show.
Yeah, no, definitely. I also wonder
There's that awesome car.
if you can see like changes in their performance, like based on what season it's in, because we jump a year, and I wonder
Yeah.
if there's anything like that. If you really know what you're looking for.
Yeah, because there's a lot of shows that do that, that attempt to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Arrow's an obvious example. You know, Lost has it. A lot of different shows. This has a couple of cool guest stars that I'm familiar with from other things. We've got John Billingsley we'll get later in this episode, who was Dr. Phlox in Enterprise, and I'll talk about him when we get there, and why I was pretty sure that he was going to turn out to be the serial killer. Was not shocked by that reveal, I gotta say. Now, what is kind of weird jumping in, you know, with 2 feet and not having seen the show much, is she'll show up and threaten this guy and then kind of be nowhere else in the rest of the episode. So we didn't talk, Austin, about the opening scene where he wakes up and has been on the verge of death, and then you'll find out that at the end that's a bookend, and that he really has died at the end. Did they get you with that, or did you kind of call it before we got to the end that we would get back to that scene?
No, they got me. I didn't think that's where we were going.
I felt kind of duped by getting gotten on that one because I was suspicious at the beginning, and then it was one of those things where I got enthralled enough in the episode I forgot about it.
That's kind of what I had too, where I wasn't even thinking about that.
And it's designed that way. I don't think it's horribly gimmicky. In fact, there's a kind of neat ambiguity about it where, and tell me if you think I'm reading too far into this, it is possible that in the hell of his own making that he's in by the end of this, that we're in a causality loop, and that it actually is linear. That this might be the second or third or 500th time he's been through all of this. He could be in a causality loop.
Well, and that was, I was going to mention it too when we got there, but that was kind of the read I had watching it the first time, that it was all kind of looped around.
Yeah, it didn't read like that irritating in Matus Rest thing where we jump backwards. But I did, thinking that it was the opening thing, because it reads like it's part of his motivation to go after his wife, to go back to her, or his wife that he's separated from that is trying to get him to give him the divorce, because he says to the nurse, maybe I have another chance. I'm going to go try to make things okay with my wife. And then he does all of that, and you assume that he is motivated by a near-death experience, but it's weird that we never talk about what happened to him. And that was what I found suspicious. And also something about it at the beginning read real celestial and supernatural to me. Just like the way it's shot, the lighting, the coloring is off, and I'm like, or at least the lighting. And in that scene at the beginning, I was like, okay, he's in purgatory or hell or something. And then I forgot all about it. When we get to the end, I was like, I was right, but I didn't call it because I didn't think that was what was happening. I wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah,
so
Blue Dragon 5 says that's how hell loops, or like how hell works. It's hell loops, and Snuffle
Such a great idea.
Yeah, that is hell. He's trapped in his own guilt.
It's a really great idea, and because I agree that that's probably like the most twisted, demented thing that you could make a person have to go through throughout the rest of eternity. But it's also really interesting the way it speaks to human condition, the notion that you could leave anytime you want to, but people stay in it because they're somehow more comfortable that way, even though they're also being horribly tortured. And it speaks to a very real, I think we're mining truth with that, a very, real dark side of the human condition. The other thing I like about it is the idea that the definition of hell and the definition of insanity are the same. Did you have that thought? Like insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, which sounds like hell to me. Like, I like that they're the same thing.
No, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. This bit with the woman is pretty funny.
Yeah, this whole bondage sex thing, it's funny.
He's so innocent.
and she's funny. Like, whoever that actress is, I think she does a great job in the scene.
No, she's only there for a scene, but she really owns it.
She does. She's got a lot of presence. It's great.
I like when he puts the gag back in and she's just like,
thank you. Yeah, it's great. And, like, it's charming and there's nothing weird and creepy about it at all because the whole thing is consensual and, like, it's just a private thing that they're doing. It's for them. Like, whatever you do, is whatever. But also, I mean, like, the edible toys or whatever, like, that's pretty messed up.
And that's something you never thought you'd talk about.
No, I never thought I would talk about this on camera, yeah. But it really wins me over with it. And it's also just the juxtaposition of he's the devil, but, like, he makes sure it's consensual, and, like, yeah, he sleeps with a whole lot of different women, but he's, like, weirdly got, at least some degree of respect for the people he's with, and, I don't know. He's a fascinating package.
Very poor choice of words.
I know. Blue Dragon 5, there's a really nice, and I thought about trying to get away from that, and then I was like, Austin's here, I'll say it and just see what he does. Cap, there's a really nice payoff to this episode at the end of the Lucifer series. Oh, interesting. That they go back to that. There's that bit you like. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, now I overcorrected, went a bit too far ahead.
She's gonna get really bored laying there because he's gonna be out for a while.
Yeah, she doesn't even have a tablet to read on.
I don't know. Can you keep up your excitement for that long when you're just tied to bed?
It just turns into Gerald's game at that point.
That's true.
There's a whole movie that happens in between.
That's right. Yeah. It's just a good thing that they're not in a cabin in the middle of nowhere and there's no dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Weird midnight men.
Let that be a lesson to you folks. If you decide to go have an exciting bondage weekend with your significant other in the middle of the woods, don't have dogs around.
Especially if they're named Prince. That's a whole other thing, because Stephen King thinks that's really funny in the book.
Just turn into an After Dark commentary. There's no way around it. So I like that I'm getting a little bit off the beaten path here when only, 15, 20 minutes, 17, 18 minutes into the episode, he's decided that there really is no story and that Lucifer, there isn't any kind of conspiracy to unravel, and, he is who he says he is. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do for the rest of the episode? And maybe I should have called that, right after that, he's going to realize that this guy is the devil and then, double down on figuring him out in his story and everything. But I didn't, and I don't know, the episode's got some nice twists and turns and kept kind of taking me for a ride. And I think part of it is just I'm with it because I'm liking these characters and interested in them, and the writing is good, and so I'm not picking anything apart with it. I'm real with it, so it's easier for it to surprise me, I think.
Well, and I'm with this guy because this is the first episode I've seen, so I didn't even know that was a thing that he could do, where he becomes Satan-y.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I was also like, whoa.
I'm not sure how often that happens either. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it's a better episode if you've never seen the show. I wonder.
Yeah, because in a way I think it makes sense as kind of like a pilot, because you're establishing everything. It's a very unorthodox pilot, certainly. But,
but it could have been. Because, I've seen pilots that kind of revolve around a guest star that ends up getting killed at the end or written off in some way. Just to kind of establish characters. And it's a real natural way to set up and establish characters without it feeling like the whole episode is just to go, here's this person and this person. Because you really are telling a story, but you're not having to give, every major character their own subplot or something to do. So if you make them all supporting characters for this guy... And, there are a lot of episodic shows where I've complained when a guest star comes in, and particularly in TNG and stuff, where a guest star will come in and take over and the show is not about our characters. But I think when it's a problem is when our characters get totally lost and they don't even facilitate the plot very much or anything, when it almost becomes a different show or somebody else's show completely. Mm-hmm. And in exploring this guy and having him investigating Lucifer, it's also exploring the major supporting characters of the show and Lucifer. It's like I said, restatement of the thesis, giving us a kind of definition of everybody through that guy. It's weirdly like Marvel's.
Oh, good call. Yeah.
It's also interesting, you mentioned earlier maybe some of these actors have to give different performances depending on what part of the timeline they're in. And the therapist, I like seeing her, like, before and after she knows that Lucifer's the devil. Like, you can tell a lot has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I feel stupid for not thinking, like, oh yeah, she's probably a main character in the show. I'm Canadian, give me a break.
Like I said earlier, it really shocks me that the thing with them is not a running subplot through at least a season, if not a lot of the show.
Yeah, because this could be one of those CW side plots that really drags down a show.
Yeah.
Where, like,
it's 45 minutes of story
hours.
dragged to 6 seasons. Yeah.
Exactly. No, and it's a fun idea for an episode, and we get it done. You can just watch it as is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a real well-written story, and watches kind of effortless, I think. I mean, I think it's on the same level as a typical iZombie episode.
That's another show I got to get back to. We watched that one episode. I was like, I like that show. I'll watch it somewhere, and then never did. But I remember liking that quite a bit, too. Although I think I probably liked this one more than the episode we watched of that. But I don't know, because I've only seen one episode of each, so...
Yeah, and that was when we were doing Wheel of Crisis, and we just picked an episode at random. And that's a good episode, but this watches, like I'm getting why this is a fan-favorite episode, apparently. Like, it watches like one of those, even though I haven't seen much of the rest of the show. Oh, look, they did the Endgame thing. It didn't take us long. It was 1 year. And this probably predates that.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Maybe the Russos are just a really big fan of this show. Specifically that exact moment, not even this episode.
One of the reasons I have to admit that I didn't continue watching the show is I was put, and this is different networks making different decisions, but I was put off by the fact that this show got to stay on when Constantine got canceled, and that really made me lose interest in it, because Constantine I loved, and that was, I wanted to see a thing closer to the original idea of that character, what the comics were like. For a long time, we finally got it. It was pretty authentic, at least for mainstream television. And then we lost it. But this got to go on for 6 seasons. I was like,
Hey, at least they got to cross over in Crisis.
Yay.
And
only sort of, though. You have to consider Constantine in that show, and they didn't get a scene together or anything.
No, they do.
Do they?
That's how he comes in. Is Constantine's like, oh, we got to go to like purgatory.
Oh, that's right. I remember he was at a door talking to someone, but I couldn't remember who he was talking to.
Yeah, they basically just walk up to a door and he opens it and he's like, Constantine, my darling.
Real disheveled at this point. I mean, like I said, I think it's almost like equally tragic and comedic, and I don't know exactly how to articulate why, but like there is kind of a like comedy element to just how like out of touch this guy ends up being, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Well, I like the idea that Lucifer is constantly like pushing him forward without realizing.
Yeah. Well, and there are a lot of things that this show does that could be, and I felt like this with iZombie too, where just the writing is good enough to put it over the top, where a lesser show, it would seem really gimmicky and standard, but the show can do the same kinds of things that those shows do, and it doesn't watch that way. Particularly with Lucifer, like not realizing that for a good long time, that this guy is talking about him when he's talking about a guy that his wife keeps sleeping with. That could be really irritating under the wrong pen, and
oh, absolutely,
it's pretty
I
funny
think
here, but I also believe it. I
Yeah.
get why Lucifer doesn't know, and I get why he's not telling him, and they don't stretch it too far. Like at the I think kind of the right moment for him to find out is when it happens.
yeah. I think part of why it works is that it's not used to like manufacture drama.
Exactly.
It's mostly like there's like a comedic angle to it, right? Where you're like, oh, like he's so like happy to give this guy advice on how to take care of this jerk, but he's talking about himself, and it's more humorous than like just walk out of the room drama.
Yeah, and it's not teasing the audience at all.
Mhm.
Because I mean, partly because we don't have to wait episodes to finally get that status quo,
Yeah.
but also the way it's winking at the audience is clever because it's saying like, look, Lucifer gets to be the background character that doesn't know anything, and he's the main character of the show. Like that's where it's winking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
It's also shocking to me that this show doesn't have this regular journalist kind of character.
No, that's nice.
It is. I mean, I like those characters sometimes in things, and it could work really well. But I think the rule is you get a cop or you get a journalist. You don't get both.
Well, yeah,
You know, or
'cause
some
you're
kind
either-
of investigator. Like, you get one of those.
Because you're either gonna get Ben Urich or you're gonna get like Iris West.
Exactly.
And this guy, he just like continues to look more and more like Michael Douglas and Ant-Man. That
I
is
didn't have that
just-
thought until this viewing. Blue Dragon 5 says the key is that Lucifer doesn't really care enough to ask follow-up questions. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't really care. He just gives him really poor advice and then is like mildly amused by it and only half curious to know if he's tried to get revenge or torture whoever has been sleeping with his wife. And then when he finds out it's him, he's like, the look on his face when he finds out is like, that's adorable. Like, I love how condescending he is. And don't you think Lucifer gets away with a lot of unsympathetic stuff just because he really is the devil? I mean, it's just in the premise. There's so much that you can get away with.
Yeah, no, and he fits that kind of like lovable jerk character really well. Like I said while you were gone, that actor really owns that role.
The journalist, or?
Lucifer.
Yeah. Yeah, he's wonderful. But I'm also really impressed with this guy, and I feel like I've seen him in something, I'm not sure what.
I'm not sure because I just see Michael Douglas.
But you mentioned House earlier, like, this could be the pilot for a journalist show, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, I could see him carrying his own show, and I'm sure they're thinking that when they cast him and they get this going, is like, let's make sure that he can carry it like this is his regular program.
Yeah, like he just kind of goes around. This is the episode where he takes on the devil. It jumps the shark for his journalist show.
Wouldn't it be great, though, if every episode tried to one-up that? Where it's like, we start with the devil, where can we possibly go? 13 episodes and canceled, I think.
The next episode, he's going against Bigfoot.
Wait, you took him to space in the 3rd episode? Okay.
He's trying to bring down the
Oh, that's where I know him from. Thanks, Hayden Spring. He says he's Hamlin in Better Call Saul. Yep. Now I remember.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
I've never even seen Breaking Bad.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We've had this conversation. You got it. It's wonderful. This is John Billingsley, who's an actor that I've always liked a lot. He's Dr. Phlox in Enterprise. I also know him from a lot of character actor things. He does small roles like this in lots of stuff.
He looks like one of those guys where you see them and you're like, that's a character actor that probably just shows up and stuff. Yeah,
he's in a wonderful science fiction film called The Man from Earth, and everybody should see that movie. Don't watch the sequel, whatever you do, but everybody should see that movie. Billingsley in this, I immediately thought, okay, he's going to be the serial killer, because he does sometimes get typecast as, and not as Phlox, although that character weirdly gets darker as he goes along, even though he starts off as this almost annoyingly optimistic character who's constantly saying the word optimism. He's so optimistic. But he does sometimes get typecast as an unassuming, like, doctor scientist type who will turn out to be a like really screwed up sociopath, and he plays that in an episode of The Orville. And The Orville got me with it, where I was like, oh, I didn't realize that Billingsley was going to be the bad... Spoiler alert for that. I didn't realize Billingsley was going to be the bad guy. That's awesome. He shows up here, and I was like, okay, he's going to be the bad guy.
I also like that he rocks up to poison Lucifer, and after talking to him for about 30 seconds, he's just like, man, this guy's awesome. I can't poison this guy.
Yeah, and I don't think it's because of any kind of spell that Lucifer casts on anyone.
No,
like,
he's just
like
a
actual
charming
supernatural
guy.
one.
Yeah.
He's just, yeah, you just like, and what's fun about that is, like, it's, you know, again, you get that fun juxtaposition of he's the devil, but you like him, but also the traditional biblical devil is supposed to be like that. Like, you're supposed to, like, want to hang out with the devil, and he's the guy that, I mean, the devil is peer pressure. The devil is the guy who, you know, whispers in your ear and suggests that you do things you shouldn't do. You know, he tempts Jesus. I mean, like...
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of working those tropes into, like, the hero of your show.
Yeah. And in an era where anti-heroes are really popular and we're fascinated by the idea, like with Dexter and stuff, we're fascinated by the notion of, or like Sopranos, of following the bad guy and seeing just how sympathetic we can make him while he still is the bad guy. And I think this show is probably taking it a step further, where Lucifer is actually, at the end of the day, not the bad guy. It's kind of the sense I'm getting, where it seems like
I'd assume so, because I assume he just solves crimes and, like, and, like, catches the bad guy, but there's not, like, a lot of, you know, him being evil or anything.
Well, I mean, he is in the sense that he's, like, you know, he is suggesting revenge to people, you know, and stuff like that.
I do stuff like that.
But there does seem to be sort of a code that he lands on where he does have, you know, reverence for life and for human beings. And I remember in the pilot he makes a big deal out of how much better Earth is than where he's from, and how, like, humans have it so much better than they realize. And he's obviously, you know, kind of cast as the bad guy by heaven and hell, and is sort of forced into that box. And so he is a character that is, like, given a choice to some degree, and then you've got a nature-nurture question.
Well, it's like you said earlier, he is still, like, consensual in that in the sex scene part. Like, it's not like he's willing to go to some places like that, you know.
Yeah. I do wish that he had gotten to cross over with Constantine in that actual show. Because, I mean, like, seeing these two kind of powerhouses, like, on screen together as enemies would have been wonderful.
Well, Cap, now that this show is over, he could become a regular on Legends of Tomorrow. And Matt Ryan is not Constantine anymore.
I was going to say...
But
that would suck. That would be awful. Matt Ryan playing some other random character they made up just to keep him on the show. And then he shows up and hangs out with Matt. No! But I don't care because I'm not gonna watch that show again.
Lucifer's like, I enjoyed like hanging out with the cops, solving crimes, but now I want to travel through time.
I mean, that was the closest you guys will ever come to seeing Austin and I kill each other on camera. Like, Snuffles, the fun of the show is taking the biblical lore and twisting it into psychology and the human condition. There's a good reason one of the leading characters is a therapist. It's great to watch his arc. Yeah, I had that thought earlier too, awesome. That the show is so much about psychology.
Well, that's very Sopranos in that way. If she's one of the main characters, if that's a motif of him going to therapy.
Oh, this is the scene where he gets real condescending. And I love that the devil, he thinks, teaches him a lesson and gives him the, like, easy get-out-of-jail-free card. And then he goes and tries to use it, and, of course, it's too easy, and she rejects him out of hand, and it's like, I don't know. There's immediately just kind of a fun irony of, you've been after this guy the whole episode, and especially after you found out he's the devil. And then the moment that he knows that you know he's the devil, you try to, like, use his knowledge and his advice when you're, like, trying to bring him down to, like, you know, in the easiest way possible, get your wife back, and then, of course, that doesn't work. And it's really interesting how much more, like, insightful the devil is than a lot of the people around him, and how, like, he gets how people fit together.
Mm-hmm. No, Lucifer's advice just keeps bringing this guy down.
And I really buy that this guy has never figured out the very simple lesson of be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that life is not, doesn't work the same way as journalism. There are a lot of great stories about how the life of journalists, and we get this, of course, with policemen and all kinds of other things, too, but with how the life of a journalist is not real conducive with having a family and having relationships, and the ways in which it's difficult to, like, have a personal life, but also hang on to your humanity sometimes. That, like, you've got to be kind of ruthless to get the story. And, you investigative
gotta expose
journalism.
Everybody else, but you don't with yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's maybe a parallel to be made with superheroes to some degree there too, where like, to do your job well, to some degree you really need to hang on to your humanity, and to some degree you have to lose it, and finding that balance can be nigh impossible.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting.
And so, yeah, I mean, the way he does his job is he gets on a story, and he's impartial and solves it no matter, who it hurts and what happens to them, and, what happens to the future. And then he moves on to the next thing, and you can't do relationships like that. You can't do long-term, lasting relationships like that.
So this guy's biggest mistake here is, unlike me, he doesn't assume that every drink is poisoned.
Yeah, seriously. Hayden, I did know that Tom Welling was a major character in season 3 of the show, but I haven't seen any episodes with him. Hayden Spring, I do think Chloe is a little bit uninteresting, but most other characters I like a lot. Yeah, I remember finding her kind of generic early on, and not totally sure why Lucifer was so enamored with her. But she's hardly in this episode, so...
Yeah. She's the cop woman, I'm guessing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she's his, right-hand person, sidekick in the show.
Yeah, I liked her well enough in this, but she, like you said, she's barely in it. She really only has like 3 scenes.
I wonder, and folks that have seen this show, let me know. I wonder if this is the first time we get that glimpse of hell, or if we've done that kind of thing before. Because when Snuffles suggested we do this, she mentioned something about world building, and the only thing I can imagine that would be new at all would be maybe finally getting that glimpse of hell. Blue Dragon 5, such a tragic fate for poor Reese here. Yeah, and yet kind of brings it on himself too.
No, Reese finds a way to take his life and just like bring it down to pieces.
I was wondering where you're going with that. So yeah, when we get this same scene here, I don't know that we're repeating a scene. I think this might be happening on a regular basis, and that again, that whole episode he's been through before. It's like cause and effect in TNG, but you didn't know it. You don't get to see the Enterprise blow up 6 times. You just do it the 2 times.
Yeah, and Snuffles, to answer your point with the world building thing, she does say this is the first time you see Hell Loops.
Oh, okay. So I'm right about that. Which, of course, makes the title kind of a double entendre.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's wonderful.
No, it's a really good episode.
Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. I definitely want to watch more of the show now, and part of the reason also that I thought this was a good idea for a commentary was because I wasn't sure we would ever do a mini commentary series on this, a marathon, but I really liked that, so maybe at some point we will. I don't know, like if we finally watch some of the show, and then maybe on a Friday we'll decide to do a few in a row.
Yeah, or even just ask people for recommendations on episodes you can just kind of watch in a vacuum.
Originally tonight we were supposed to do a review for Connor, and Austin wasn't able to get his hands on the movie for that, which is why we didn't end up doing it. So we went to the next one, which was this. So next week we're going to be doing a movie. Everybody, I'm sure will be shocked by this, by David Lynch, because that's Connor's favorite director, which is called Straight Story from 1999. And hopefully Austin can get his hands on it. If not, I'll just fly solo on that one. But anyway, folks, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to make a request yourself, you can join the $15 tier on Patreon. That's patreon.com/geekvolution. You could do a comic, a movie, a pilot for a TV show, or an episode of a show that I and or Austin is already familiar with. And we do this live every Tuesday. Thanks a bunch once again for watching. I'll be back again Thursday night for the Captain Logan show. And right now, no planned live shows tomorrow night, but I could pop in for something late impromptu. I don't know yet. That might happen. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin, the Day Ghost.